To your left.
Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Planning Board of May 20th, 2021 to order. Welcome all the applicants and our village participants and staff and consultants. I'd like to acknowledge that we do have a quorum and do a roll call this evening. Lindsay Krakauer. Kirsten Harries.
Here.
Erin Carney.
Here.
And I am Marjorie Hsu. Let me just quickly run through the agenda for this evening. We have GTY New York Leasing with an amended site plan at 215 North Broadway. We have a resolution this evening. We have a second resolution at Edge on Hudson Riverfront Development for the Phase 3 Block OP Townhouses. Third on the agenda is a public hearing for a proposed pool at 650 Riverside Drive. And then we have a presentation for 47 Clinton Street. They have received ZBA approval last evening for their proposed change of use. And we also have 135 Beekman Avenue, an ongoing presentation discussion regarding a proposed multifamily building. We have a new applicant with a preliminary presentation, Phelps Hospital and Northwell Health, to amend their site plan to replace their generators on site. And then the last agenda item is another preliminary presentation for a proposed pool that is sitting in wetlands buffer at 15 Pocoho Drive. Before we get started, I have to read this statement, which I should have committed to memory by now, but I have not. Tonight's meeting and work session is being convened in accordance with the governor's executive order number 202.1 that was issued last March 13th, 2020, that suspends certain provisions of the New York State open meetings law that allows a municipal board to convene a meeting via video conference. And in accordance with that order, the public has been provided with the ability to view tonight's meeting, and a transcript will be provided at a later date. We've also confirmed that all the notices have been posted throughout the village's website, bulletin board, the library, Facebook page, et cetera, et cetera. We're anticipating that next month, June, I don't know what the date is, we may be back at Village Hall, so that will be exciting. So with that, let's just jump into the agenda. The first is the amended site plan for GTY New York Leasing at 215 North Broadway. David Smith has prepared a resolution. Is the applicant here?
I don't know if the applicant is here or not, but the resolution, essentially, if you recall, at the last meeting, the applicant presented, they had just received their ZBA approval, or I think that the night before, they needed to have the approval in order to begin work on, ordering the sign and getting the equipment ready. So the planning board did a voice vote. The resolution that you have before you is a confirmatory resolution, which essentially confirms the process that the planning board went through, the environmental review that the planning board undertook. And then there are two specific conditions. One, the applicant shall pay the Village of Sleepy Hollow all application review fees as required by the village code prior to a building permit being issued. And two, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, an as-built survey shall be provided to the village building department. Any material change to the site plan from that approved by the planning board will require the applicant to present the revised plan to the planning board for a site plan amendment. So essentially, this is a fairly straightforward, it's your typical resolution, but it confirms the voice vote that you took last week. It allows the chair to sign the resolution and have it formally filed with the building department for their records.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Since we already voted back in April, I don't think we need to vote again. And at some point, I'll make my way down to Village Hall to sign the resolution.
I think we should vote again just to formally approve it.
Okay. I move to
I'm sorry.
approve said resolution. Can I get a second?
A second, ma'am.
Ed seconds it. And all in favor, Lindsay?
Aye.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Okay, the resolution is passed. Okay, next up is another resolution. I guess we'll get to vote on that again. Edge on Hudson Riverfront Development, the Phase 3 Block OP Townhouse townhomes, the first 20. So we have Mr. Dowd, Ms. Fitzgibbon, and Mr. McCarthy, another Mr. McCarthy. I guess that'll make it 3.
Yeah.
And Greg Otis. Okay. So Dave, would you like to talk us through the resolution, which I understand has been shared with the applicant?
It's the same format as the 215 Broadway. At the last meeting, you had a voice vote to approve the architectural components of blocks O and P. So the resolution that's before you essentially just confirms the voice vote. It includes all of the conditions that the planning board and the applicant had discussed previously with respect to, and I think there were 13 or 14, 15 different conditions that address the architectural review board components that fall under the planning board's purview. So you have a resolution before you to act on.
Okay, so I move to approve said resolution. Can I get a second?
Second.
Kirsten seconds. Ed?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Okay, resolution passed. I do want to make note that when I took attendance, I think I failed to acknowledge that Ed McCarthy is here this evening as well. So let the minutes reflect that it's not an all-female board this evening.
Rob Dow from Toll Brothers. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. You're very welcome. Let the building commence and.
Yes, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Have a good night. Next is a continuing public hearing for 650 Riverside Drive, but my understanding from Sean is that the applicant has requested an adjournment, but I will go ahead and move to open the public hearing for 650 Riverside Drive. Lindsay Krakauer seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Kirsten, Ed,
Aye.
and Aaron, all in favor. So with that, the public hearing is opened. Do we have anyone from the neighborhood that is attending to provide comment?
Do not see any hands being raised. If anyone wants to speak, just raise your hand. Seeing none.
I will make note that there was one neighbor who did provide written comments to the building department and to the planning board. And I welcome that person to attend the next planning board meeting if they would like to speak, as well as if they participate in our meeting. I think some of their questions will be answered. So
And the next meeting will be June 17th at Village Hall.
June 17th. Thank you, Sean. My pen's not working. Okay, with that, I move to adjourn this public hearing for 650 Riverside Drive. Can I get a second? Lindsay seconds the motion. All in favor? Aaron?
Aye.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Ed? Ed? Okay, Ed's muted, but he said aye.
Hi, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thanks. Okay, moving right along, we have Tapsy Realty with a presentation for 47 Clinton Street, a proposed change of use. And-
Vassalotti here. On the application,
Yes, hello,
Amy.
Mr. Vassalotti.
how are you? As you mentioned last evening, we did receive the zoning board approval. So now my question is, what, I'm unfamiliar, obviously, with the Sleepy Hollow. What is my next step in getting your approval?
I believe we will have a public hearing on June 17th. So you will be guided by the building department as far as noticing the neighbors around your property, and we'll solicit any public comment and go from there.
Okay. The mailing we sent out initially, return receipt mailing, that doesn't count. This is something we have to do with signage, something like that.
Yes, you'll have to send a new notice. We'll provide you with the notice. The mailing area is the same as the zoning board, but it will be a new notice, and we'll prepare.
Okay.
it for this week.
No problem. So we'll
Okay.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, terrific. Well, we're glad that you've passed the zoning board, and happy that there will be a new two-bedroom apartment in that neighborhood. So we'll look forward to the hearing on June 17th. Do you have any other questions for the planning board or any of the consultants?
No, we'll speak with Mr. McCarthy and see what we have to do. I'll look at the planning application, and we'll do whatever it is we have to do to be ready for the June 17th meeting.
Okay, terrific. We look forward to that.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good month.
Yes, thank you. You too.
Okay, I guess we'll be speaking to the next agenda item, 135
Yes.
Beekman Ave.
Madam Chair, you need to set a public hearing for him if you choose to have it.
Oh, okay. So we vote to
Yes,
set a public hearing. Okay.
ma'am.
Looks like Kirsten's ready to make a motion.
Yep, I moved to set a public hearing for next month's meeting for 47 Clinton Street.
Okay, I second it. Marjorie Shu. All in favor?
Aye.
Ed says
Aye.
aye. Aaron says aye.
Aye.
Lindsay says aye. So, okay, we'll see you June 17th. Thank you.
17th. Okay, no problem. Okay, now we're at 135 Beekman. We did submit a lot of new material. One, we had submitted revised elevations, a colored streetscape, revised drawings, and Brian Dempsey of his company already is terrible. For the parking, he can speak on this. There's been a number of drawings that were prepared for circulation, for the 30 cars, for the accommodation of the fire truck, etc. And is Brian on this call? No.
Yes.
He's there, Jim.
What,
He's
Chris?
Yes, I'm on.
Oh, okay, Brian.
Just getting,
I
Sean was
just
just
see
bumping
your
me up
picture, yeah.
to
And you know,
the speaker, so it blanked out for a little bit there.
that's okay. Would you bring up the drawings if you want to discuss them? You know, you're here to talk
Okay.
about it.
Sean,
We basically
share my screen?
have, excuse me?
Yes, you can share your screen.
Yeah. Okay. You know, we have a large piece, oop. No. Okay. Is this, Ryan, was this pulled up by you,
Yes,
Chris? Okay. Did you want to talk, you gave us about 8 different layouts. This being the last one, which is the fire truck. Can you
Right.
start from the beginning?
okay, we can,
You know, to show how we're gonna not have to have two-way traffic.
okay, so since the last hearing, what we did, we widened the driveway to 20 feet wide. So it will be two-way traffic to this point here, about halfway up the driveway, where it then becomes a one-way traffic, approximately 12 feet wide in that area. And this was just a turning movement diagram showing how a vehicle could circulate through the site and then would exit out onto Beekman Avenue here. We were also asked in Mr. Smith's letter to show the turning movements coming in and out of the different parking areas. So, and to so that they can be done relatively simply. So this shows a vehicle coming around, would come into, pull ahead, and then would back into this other space. These other spaces in front of it, the vehicle would just be able to pull straight in. But this shows how it'll be able to back in, come out, has more than sufficient room, and then would be able to exit out of the site. This shows how one of the vehicles would pull into, pulling forward into this space here. And these others are just different locations where we were asked to take a look at. This is one of the parking spaces underneath the building and how the vehicle will pull in here. Again, this is, since this spot is right after the columns in the building structure, when the vehicle pulls underneath the building, he'll back into this parking space here. We have 30 parking spaces, which is the amount that's required. There are 11 of the spaces are compact. We are permitted up to 12. Again, these are just some other templates of showing how the vehicle would pull into the angled spaces that are in the back, which is one of the compact spaces. And this is into another compact space along the east side of the property. And then what we also showed is the fire engine. What we used is a 47-foot aerial ladder truck, which shows he'll be able to pull in appropriately. The fire department asked for a 20-foot wide section in this section here, so we provide it. And even this section here, which is 15 feet 6 inches, is also wide enough for the ladder to put out its riggers so that, for support if need be. And so this is if it was coming from the east and turning in, and we also showed same thing if he was coming from the west and turned into the site there. So the truck makes it through into the site without an issue. And then he would back out, and he's able to back out also. So are there any questions on the parking or turning movements?
I don't. I appreciate your work, and
I have some
if the
questions.
board has some questions, please.
Will the parking spaces be assigned to each unit, or is it first come, first serve?
I've never discussed that with my client. I'll be seeing him tomorrow. I can ask that question, but there's no answer at this particular moment.
Okay. And at the last planning board meeting, I had suggested that perhaps you speak to the owners of 30 Andrews, given that your properties are abutting each other, whether there was a possibility of driving the fire truck straight through from one property to his property.
Right. Well, once we have not pursued that, no. Once Brian came up with these schemes to bring the truck right onto our property, we didn't feel there was a need to get involved with the next door neighbor, easements and et cetera, et cetera. So no, we have not asked them anything.
Well, specifically for emergency vehicle access, it would be better, obviously, for the fire truck to be able to pull straight through rather than backing up back onto Beekman.
We could pursue that. I mean, we'd have to be in touch with find out who the principals are over there and to open up any sort of dialogue with them. But it could be pursued, yes.
Okay, well, we can certainly help facilitate the contact information.
And we'll get that from you Monday, if that's okay.
Of course.
Thank you. All right, well, if nobody has anything else, Ryan, you could drop that off the screen. And Chris, why don't you put up the current streetscape?
Well, does anyone else have any questions about the parking kind of simulation?
I have a couple questions about the site circulation in general. Would you mind bringing that back up, actually, the last diagram?
Okay. Ryan, can you bring that up again?
Just on the parking first, underneath the structure, the space all the way to the right of the 4 full
Yes.
row. Is there enough room for that car to get out of the spot? Can it back out?
Yeah, well, one of the diagrams shows the person parking in that spot.
Yes. So this is a spot where the person would likely back into, and depending upon the size car, would back into the spot, and then he would be able to pull out in the same manner and come out, because you do have the wall right here.
Right. On the space, okay, thanks.
The space ends here. These are dimension lines.
Mhm.
It might be kind of hard to see on the smaller scale screen.
I see it now, thanks. As you move to the left, are those spaces with the aisles in between, are those handicap spots?
You mean these right here?
Yes.
Now those are, that's striping because this is a column right here and a column right here.
Okay.
So there's
We
striping
have
in
the
between them.
handicap spot.
There's a
over there.
handicap spot here, and another handicap spot here.
And I can't see it from this, but is that hatched area, is that adequate for loading and unloading for the handicap spot?
Yes, it's actually the spaces on these handicap spaces are actually bigger than required. New York has an 8-foot requirement for the space. These spaces are 9 foot, and then an 8-foot space in between to accompany van access at both spots.
Okay. One other thing about site circulation, or actually I guess a couple of things, is garbage pickup intended to be on site?
Well, have a compactor in the building. Those will sausage bag the garbage. My understanding is that the owner will have a porter on site to maintain the building, and he would bring the trash to the curb. In one of our earlier meetings, it was discussed whether we could get city parking, pickup, and the answer was yes. So this fellow would be required to go through the trash rooms on the different levels, pick up recyclables, and bring everything out to the curb. So we were not planning on having on-site trash collection.
Mm-hmm. So what about deliveries to the building?
Well, I mean, you have a 20-foot wide section there, big enough for a fire truck. I don't know how many deliveries they're gonna get. I mean, who pulls up? An Amazon van, a UPS van?
My street gets quite a few deliveries of Amazon.
Well, we get them every day as well, you know what I mean? But they, they're not huge trucks. They come, they park, and they do their delivery, and they go away. So it's not like we're gonna bring anything big here.
Well, you're going to
There's
have,
also on-street parking there too.
Yes.
you're going to have moving vans when people are moving in and out of the apartment units.
Yes, you'd have a moving van. And the worst case scenario, they're gonna park in the street and carry everything out if you feel it's gonna compromise this 20-foot wide fire department access. Because it's the same thing. I live down here in Bronxville, and we have, fire trucks in this driveway all the time, and it doesn't meet any of these criterias. We live in a building where there are an elderly population, and like I said, ambulances, fire trucks, et cetera, are here, unfortunately, too many times a month. I think that would be okay. I mean, I can't.
Yep. And it's not an everyday occurrence. What's the distance between those columns by that first parking space once you enter the building?
The distance between those columns is about 18 feet.
No, the distance between the columns for the entrance into.
Yeah. Well, if I take my 18 plus 3 plus 3, 18, it's 24 feet.
24 feet.
Mention that, but it would be 24 feet.
Okay, to enter underneath the building is 24 feet. Okay.
Yes.
And just to get back to the delivery truck question, so is the intent, will this site facilitate a truck making that turn and coming through underneath the building and out? Or how does the truck get out once it's in the driveway?
Once it's in the driveway, I would imagine if it follows one of these routes and goes around and goes out.
Has that turning movement been studied?
I'd have to ask Brian.
Are you, if it's an Amazon van or such, it'll be able, the circulation we showed in the beginning of the drawings would get through, no problem.
Okay, those are a little bit smaller than the UPS and FedEx trucks though. Can those get through?
That we did not, we looked at a large passenger car SUV type. We can look at that.
Chris?
If they're too big, they would, similar to what they do today, is they will park on the street there.
Well, Beekman's kind of a busy street. I don't think that's quite ideal if the site can facilitate the truck
Well,
turning.
let's say the Amazon or somebody comes to your house on the street, they're gonna park in the street, not gonna pull in your driveway. So it shouldn't be any different than anything else on the block.
What's the height of the,
The
that
arch
20
there,
yeah, the 20-foot,
yeah.
24-foot space?
Christopher, you know that height offhand?
The height of the archway going in?
Yeah.
I'd have, let me pull up my, 1 second. Just pulling up my drawing.
While he's doing that for a second, most of the balconies that are now, they gave us the height of the fire truck or something like 13 feet. So the whole second floor will be French balconies. So there's no problem with the fire truck hitting a balcony.
And James, just going back to your, even a larger vehicle, a larger delivery van will be able to get through. I just looked at it in terms of how much room is within the turning radiuses, because the road on the west side is a 15-foot, over 15 feet wide, and the aisles are all a minimum of 18 feet wide. So there is ample room for that vehicle to get through.
Oh, great. Did you already run that auto turn or whatever you're using?
I'm just going back to, sorry. Well, it was just based on how, because this area is striped there, so there's plenty of room for them to make these turns going through here. And then to come out, everything was kept wide enough. And then this part of the driveway is 20 feet wide. So I don't have that template on me right now, but just based upon the way this car went through.
Okay, great. Can you just confirm that? Go back and, I mean, you don't have to do it right now, but.
Right, yeah, we'll confirm it. We'll let Mr. Smith know.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just have a quick question. Just following up on, I think you had raised the issue of whether the parking spaces are assigned or not, and we haven't figured that out or haven't had it confirmed by the applicant. But if they're not, and somebody comes in and doesn't find a spot or has to go around or wants to come back out again, is there enough turning radius, Brian, so that somebody had to double back and go back into?
Yes, he'll be able to make this turn here. It's basically a standard right turn because you have 15'6" here. So there's room enough to make the turn.
Okay. And I guess the other question is, typically when you're accommodating the compact spaces, typically it's part of a much larger parking program. And I guess the concern is, you know, what happens if your tenants all have normal sized cars?
I mean, these compact cars would fit compact spaces will fit most cars based upon the size of cars nowadays. What was done was, and if necessary, we can switch a couple to full size, but we were trying to leave more open space, which was something that some of the board had asked about. So that's why we had some striped areas in some of these spaces here.
Mr. Dempsey, what is the tool that you're using to model these turning tracks? And
This is an AutoCAD truck turning template.
okay.
Madam Chair, if I can state one thing, and this isn't a question, it's just a comment. And that's that the Board of Trustees is currently considering an overlay zone that would apply to this property. And you might want to look at that, Mr. Vazzalotti, and see what it would do to you and this property and your design.
Is this public information? I mean, where would I go and find that out?
Yeah, it is public. Sean, do you have a copy of it or?
Yes, I could send the latest draft.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. We're here now a few months, trying to do the right thing and do what's in compliance with the zoning resolution. And let's say we get the planning board approval 2 months from now. And we start to, start the construction documents for this project. And then a month later, there's a new zoning. Are we going to be impacted by that? I mean, because we're wasting our time if we're not.
Historically, you must comply with the law in effect either when you get your approval or when you have started work.
So if we get our approval prior to this new zoning amendment, then we're okay.
Presumably, yes.
Thank you.
But I don't know what the timing for the town board will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the timing for the planning board will be.
Correct. Understandable. Okay, just a question. So it's Sean would send me something, okay? Thank you.
Will do.
I would note just it's worth looking at because it's from a bulk massing standpoint, from a setback standpoint. Some of it would be in your favor, would be more advantageous than the current zoning code. For example, you have now your 25-foot setback in the front, but this is proposing a minimum of 5, maximum of 15.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then in terms of guidance on volume and architectural detailing, it provides beginning of visual indications of how one would fit in with the character of the neighborhood. So
how does it compare to the current bulk regulations?
This particular element I'm referring to within the the draft modifications being proposed would be an overlay zone specific to the area that your lot is in. I mean, not only your lot, but it's for Lower Beekman. So you're within that.
So would the bulk regulation change?
That I can't answer. I don't think so. I mean, I can't remember honestly the details of.
In other words, we're permitted right now as a 4-story building, 15 apartments. Is that going to stay the same? Or going to turn around and say, no, you got a 2-story building and 6 apartments?
No, if anything, I think
it's not more restrictive.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say the opposite. I think it's going to be, well, anyway.
While we're discussing the massing and the architectural details, would you mind bringing up your diagrams as far as the street-facing facade? And it might be easier to kind of talk through.
Okay. Everybody see that?
Yes, yes. Right now, the building that's there is currently the biggest building on the block, our site. And in fact, these dimensions shouldn't be what's on that ridge, but they're virtually, I think about 2-foot difference between what's there now and what we currently propose.
Yes. Okay, so just to give you some backdrop, the Village of Sleepy Hollow has been working on a comprehensive plan, and they finalized the comprehensive plan a couple years ago. And the first order of business is revisiting the zoning code in the village, and the specific intent is to make it easier for developers and property owners to invest in the Village of Sleepy Hollow with more and better housing stock, and to make make it easier for you. And but we also at the same time want to preserve the character of our village, in particular, the historic Beekman Avenue. And I appreciate that you've made the street facing facade more consistent with the neighbors. And I agree that that building is the tallest other than the church across the street. I just had some questions. That you show an entrance on Beekman Avenue. Would that enter one of the units?
No. That Chris, could you pull up and show with how that we redesigned that area?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. It's going to be the main entrance into the building.
I see.
There was discussion that we had no doors in the front like everybody else. So we redesigned this thing around that. So that's what's there. Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that there will be a porter. So that's someone that will be at the site during the day. And then.
Yes, someone who will come to the site, take care of the trash rooms, take care of the recyclables, take care of the trash. Obviously, do any work that would normally be done by a porter.
And is a porter kind of like a superintendent?
Yeah, a superintendent / porter. Talking just a garbage pickup, it's a porter, but depending on what level of person is going to be on the job, whether the person holds some licenses for boilers, et cetera, sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems. That's the kind of person the client is looking to get involved with the job. Because somebody's got to do all this on a daily basis.
Okay. And then if you go back to the front facing.
Yes.
So above that are the residential apartments.
Yes.
And
yes.
are there balconies off of there?
On the second floor, yes.
Uh-huh.
These balconies are about 6 feet deep. According to the code, are permitted 8 feet. These I made, I think, 6 feet. But I don't know if the side elevation, you'll see we cut the balconies back, and more than likely, most of them will be French balconies.
Okay.
I appreciate that you've reoriented the main entrance to Beekman, and that you've put some balconies there, and you've tried to break up the facade closer to the scale of the adjacent buildings. Though I noticed that the treatment that you have is fairly two-dimensional. It's just like a change in material, I believe. The white versus the dark
yes,
siding.
It's a material change.
Correct. I was wondering if you'd explored opportunities that would have more three-dimensional modulation or articulation. For example, more of a bay style similar to the other houses, particularly maybe on the side that has the living room, dining room, and plan. And or if you had looked at any roof above the balcony or even other balconies to create
No, according to the code that I read, we were going to put like a patio, more or less, a terrace on grade with railing at the lower level. But according to the zoning, it says you can't have another balcony below the other balcony, if you read into the zoning. So I would have done more down here, but I don't think it was permissible. or even up here by putting another balcony at this level above this one. They don't want any columns, and this one would then cover this one. And my interpretation of the code, it didn't, that's why we only have one balcony there.
Where does the code say that?
Well, we couldn't encroach into the setbacks requirements.
Yeah,
It
but
didn't-
you can do it if you want to do it, if you want to propose it.
Well, we can, but we're just trying to do what the
That's not how we read it.
Right, but you guys got to remember, this is a huge project for the village. If you
Yeah.
need an encroachment to make a better design out of it, design it.
Yeah, okay, I'm all for that.
Good.
Okay.
Especially the front, I say that those front setback lines, like I said, when you see the draft that I was referring to, there's encouragement in this particular scenario to move away from what our current zoning is probably dictating, but so
Okay,
we would be supportive. And I think that, that said, I know you're probably working hard to not have to ask for a zoning variance, but if
Yes.
it made for a better design and we're supportive of it, then it shouldn't be something to be feared.
okay,
Currently, you're allowed to take the average setback of the adjoining buildings, even if that encroaches on the front yard setback.
right, the
And you wouldn't
average,
need
yes, I saw that. We haven't determined what the average is on the block right now, but it's something we could explore.
Yeah, that's a major issue. You should be thinking of that before you lay out the whole building.
Mhm.
That's your starting point.
Right. Well, if the zoning is gonna change that to a 5 or a 10-foot setback,
No, but right now, what you're proposing under our current zoning allows you to actually move your building closer to the street. So you should probably take advantage of that. And maybe do
yeah,
it.
because most of these buildings on the left here, you can see are closer, not set back as far as ours is. And I'm
Correct.
not sure. Well, we
So
don't
what
have
I'm
the
saying
survey.
is move your building forward or put a covered entrance, which is
Okay,
probably should be done.
we will look into that.
Have you given any consideration to a different building configuration? It's obviously a very long, narrow piece of land.
Right.
Have you given thought to preserving the current building and, renovating or restoring that? I believe that's like maybe a 3 or 4 family
Right.
dwelling unit as it is, and then you could possibly do other townhouses stacked behind it, or
No,
other.
we have not explored anything like that.
Yeah, that
I don't know if my client would be interested in something like that. But in the world of zoning, everyone wants to build to the maximum potential that the law allows and not to make it small. This is a business, so
understood.
I doubt that's what he's looking to do.
Yeah, we understood that he wants to, or she wants to maximize the economics of developing on that property, but there may be costs, savings associated with preserving that the existing building, and you start getting rental income
Right.
Sooner rather than later. So anyway, I'll let you follow up with the applicant and figure out the NPV on that.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to follow up on that it's this board's job not to approve the maximum economically feasible project, but to evaluate how a project like this fits into the surrounding environment. And there's a
Yes.
weighing and balancing of the development program and the impacts associated with that. And so the quote unquote, as of right, when you run the math, may be 15 units, but that may not be the reality at the end of the day that what gets approved because of circulation, because of the building program, because of access, because any number of things. And the other comment that I just want to raise for the board's consideration, that one of the zoning requirements is the provision of common open space. And we've talked about it in some terms, but I think that the planning board needs to provide direction to this applicant about providing that common open space at grade for the benefit of the potential residents of this particular
Let me ask
facility.
you a question.
No, you're gonna wait. You're gonna wait.
Okay, sorry.
And yeah, so the issue is that the proposed zoning presents opportunities to shift the building program closer to the street, which may present an opportunity further in the back of the site for the applicant to accommodate this particular aspect of the zoning. So I think it's incumbent upon the planning board to provide some direction to this applicant that the common open space should be provided at grade, accessible to the public, or at least to the residents of this particular building.
It doesn't say that in your zoning resolution. It says you have to provide it. It doesn't say where you have to provide it.
Well, now see, here we go. Now, I just said to the planning board, you need to provide direction to the applicant. So now they're providing direction to you as to what you need to do, all right? Or you can go to the zoning board of appeals and have it adjudicated, if that's what you would like to do.
That will be a decision by my client, what he wants to
Right.
do.
Are you counting the space on the roof as the open space amenity for the project?
Correctly now, yes.
And the design of the roof, it looks like you have a mansard style roof. Is that going to extend up and be a parapet then?
If we do the mansard, which maybe yes, maybe no, it would extend up as a parapet, yes.
Okay.
3
Well-
foot 6 inches.
Yeah, so would any of that area be open, like an open railing? So the people up on the roof area would have a view?
That's a good point. I would say yes.
So on your front elevation then too, you should probably depict the both the elevator penthouse and the stair penthouse. That would have to extend to that level then.
Yes, yes.
I guess I'd like to make a few points related to David Smith's comments, and that's related to both the massing of the building and the public space. And seeing as how there is this overlay that the building falls within, I do think it's important to look at this in terms of the setback, in terms also of the massing of the building. I'm very sensitive to the fact that this is a large and unusual lot in that it is bound by existing structures. 30 Andrews Lane also was a recent applicant that had similar issues. And I guess what I'm saying is that as we have and encourage infill development within our village, I understand the economic factors that you and your client are facing. We are looking at a structure that, we're looking to have buildings within our village that will last and be cherished for a very long time. And so the design is really critical, and we have to think of the public benefit to those also living around these areas in terms of airflow, in terms of air circulation, in terms of other things that are impacted by the massing of the building. So yeah, I think if looking at the proportions of that box and what that means for adjacent residents and their open space, and also I am concerned about the any kind of heat island effect with the hardscape. It isn't a lot that is placing, there's no trees, there's no greenscape, there's, I'm concerned about increased heat in this area.
I mean, the 5 foot setback buffer around the property is going to be landscaped. All these hatched areas down here could be all landscaped. We can introduce all these turnarounds here, could all be landscaped out, and is intended to be landscaped out.
Is there any reason why you didn't extend the, that 5-foot landscape down to along the 20-foot wide driveway?
Well, it's not required at that point, and we would not get our 20-foot fire department access.
Right, but even if you reduce it down, I mean, to have pavement going right up to the property line.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're gonna have a fence. It's gonna not look good.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
gonna
we-
be a maintenance problem.
Yeah,
With
would the
people
fire
crashing.
department grant me 18 feet? So I can make 2 foot, at least continue that strip down as 2 foot, which could be landscaped.
How about making the building smaller or narrower?
Again, it's a possibility. That's a possibility. But tomorrow I'm meeting with the client, so we have a lot to talk about. And I will bring that up.
I'd just like to raise one more point, and Sean, I don't know if this is maybe opening up a can or not, but just thinking about community benefit, if there were to be an agreement made with 30 Andrews Lane as far as an egress, would we be considering, if we could do that, that egress would just be for emergency vehicle access? Or could there be a community benefit of some sort as a connector? Because just thinking holistically about what this could bring to the community, we don't have a way to connect through those properties. And if an agreement could be reached, is that a possibility to explore as well? Maybe in lieu of something else? Just raising the thought.
Well, I thought that this would be a gate of some sort, and that there would be a lockbox that the firemen have the keys in, so somebody can come out there. Oh, my way of thinking it would be only for a fire department access.
Emergency only. Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
raising the possibility.
It's not going to work. People driving through everybody's property.
I was also thinking maybe a walkway or something that the community could benefit from. Just as an idea,
Yeah,
thinking.
It is a possibility of looking at interconnections between different properties, and particularly through the planning process. It requires certain preconditions, which may or may not be present here, and requires certain cooperation.
Mhm.
But it certainly is something that should be explored. If you haven't asked for my opinion, but I give it to you.
Okay.
The problem that I see is that you're dealing with a zoning lot,
Mhm, mhm.
and you need to look wider, look at the neighboring lots, etc., and see what you can design that fits in with them, and may give you 15 apartments. It may not give you 15 apartments. It may give you 10. It may give you 12. I don't know.
I'm trying to think of ultimate flexibility and how everyone can win.
That's right.
Mhm.
Like I said, we thought about that. If you wanted further explored, we could further explore it. But I'm not 100% sure of the interconnection of all these properties that you have in mind.
So we threw a lot at you this evening, Mr. Vassalotti, including upcoming zoning
Yes,
changes.
yes.
And if you're familiar with form-based code, you may want to kind of take that into your thinking. But what I would encourage you is to take a look at some of the draft code changes. It's going to continue to evolve, so it's a bit of a moving target for you. But I do think you have a lot to discuss with your client as far as, connectivity with 30 Andrews, possibly preserving the existing structure and renovating that to, start, his rental business right away, and then considering what else can fit behind the existing structure. But you may, want to go back to, a modification of your current design. It sounds like you've put a lot of thinking into ingress and egress. But from a planning board perspective, we're looking out for the welfare of that whole district. And we would love to see greater connectivity, in the neighborhood for walking access, bicycle access, and not just fire trucks. So give that some thought, and
Well, I
come
would
back to
say
us
that-
with additional questions to Sean, as well as we're happy to
If-
continue the discussion. We're not here to belabor and draw this out. It's just a very complicated project.
Okay, well, if I could, we'll figure out and find out what we have to find out about the average setback on the block. And let's just say it's 15 feet instead of 25. That would give me 10 by 80 at the back over here. So I'd be able to get 800 square feet of recreational space at grade. I mean, just the thought, it's not the 1,500, but it's a step perhaps in the right direction.
Yeah, and we would like to see, maybe more porches and balconies off the front of the property as well. So that
We
there's
did
more.
have that actually, that we just took it out because it was just our interpretation of the code.
Okay, good. So I think we're getting there.
Okay.
One small comment to add, if I can, was just about the bicycle parking. If you've accommodated any on site. I know you've studied all the vehicular parking quite in detail, but
We have not looked into it, but we could I think we could accommodate that.
yeah, I think we're a pretty walkable and bikeable village, and want to encourage residents to
Right, they have their own bike storage.
as possible. So yeah, to make sure there's either both protected bike storage and or additional spaces outside where that could happen.
We have here the staircase that's more towards the back of the building, with parking on both sides. So you'd have about 15 by, let's say, 10, 150 square feet. We can make a bicycle room. That's where everybody's bikes are locked up, protected. I'm just glancing at it right now. We'll look into that as well.
And as it's been noted, it's an unusual lot with its depth into the block, and that there are those adjacent properties along Kendall that I think currently in your design, there's 3 lots in particular that would be affected by your current massing. And if there was any opportunity to potentially be higher at Beekman and step down in the back, it would probably be appreciated by your neighbors.
But take that into consideration.
Have you also considered electric vehicle charging capability at the property? With 30 parking spaces, there's bound to be some EVs.
We haven't, but I can tell you where I live, we're putting in 2 stations right now. And although nobody has an electric car for the 140 spots we have, but you build it, maybe they'll come. It's the future anyhow. Everybody's going to want an electric car. So
There's a lot.
Very good idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of electric vehicles in my neighborhood.
Right.
I think it is the future. So if you want to kind of future-proof.
Yeah, no, that's something we would consider certainly.
Would you be proposing any solar panels on the roof?
We haven't discussed it, but I will.
And I'm assuming that's going to be the area for the mechanical equipment as well?
Yes. We haven't got into exactly what we're going to do with the design with the MEP engineers yet, because we just want to get through this step here first. But if it's
part of this step, Mr. Vasilati, will be also how that equipment would be screened, architecturally.
Yeah, yes.
So keep that in mind when you're talking to them.
And on the subject of power, I know there's been a lot of discussion of the front of the building. You may want to think about where a potential transformer is going to be I think we want to see that now, especially as if the building is going to get closer to the property line, that may have an effect on how things lay out.
Do you feel there will be a transformer necessary?
I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. So we haven't got into the, like I said, the MEPs because going through this process first.
I think we just don't want to be in a situation where something gets approved and then we have to come back later and shoehorn in something that's.
Yeah, well, before this gets approved, we'll figure out where a transformer could possibly be if required.
Great.
Have you given any thought to geothermal as,
I mentioned it to the client, he did not seem interested. I mean, I've done one geothermal job for a school in East Hampton my entire life.
well, again, I think there's going to be more of that in the future, as well as heat exchange, heating, cooling, and, just more electrification with induction cooktops and just much more, everyone's trying to lessen the environmental burden.
Sure, no question.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I don't think that we had an answer to the question of the height of the archways for vehicles.
Yeah,
The high point of the arch is 10 feet. And it goes down to, I think, 8 foot, 8'6", something like that.
you know, Brian, what's the height of a van? Or a Amazon truck?
That's something we'll check.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure we got the building set, that we don't, like they do in the hutch every day, drive a tractor trailer into the overpass. It's a daily occurrence.
yes, to be avoided.
Yes, at all costs. Okay, so we've got a lot, I've got a lot to go back to my client with here. And
I have one, excuse me, I like to
moving
have one
forward.
question. This open space on the roof,
Yes,
is there going to be room for air, like your handlers, air conditioning?
it's, well, that's the space there.
There's enough room up there?
Oh, there's plenty of room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. I mean, the last one of these I did for this client was in Queens, and each apartment, had a self-contained furnace, hot water heater, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think we put the condensers, but anyhow, there's lots of room here for whatever we would need. 1,500, you got 2,500 square feet.
Okay, any other comments or questions for?
I have one more question. For next month, I hope we have a solution for this garbage removal. 15 families. I don't think my neighbors down here would like to see a porter bringing out bags of garbage. You're talking maybe 30 bags of garbage on Tuesday morning and piling them up across the street from St. Teresa's Church. It'll be a mess.
Okay, well,
So I really, because on your plan, you show a compactor.
yes.
Looks good. They come down your chute and compact it and get rid of it. You can almost get rid of it on property. Have a truck and take it out of there. Bags of garbage outside on Beekman Avenue. We're trying to make Beekman Avenue a good looking spot. Maybe 30 bags of garbage on a Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Not to look too good.
Well, there's plenty of room if they decide to go with private sanitation for them to get onto the site, bring their stuff right into a garbage truck and take it away.
Yeah, it'd be nice. But
Yeah, no,
garbage,
I think
garbage
they
should be
would,
a big issue on a, this is a big plan for Beekman Avenue.
okay. No,
And you know the thing about your transformer, you'll have one and it'll more than likely be in front of your building right off of Beekman Avenue. I mean, I'm sure they can set it off to the side, but you'll have a transformer for those 15 apartments.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. Thanks for tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Have a good evening.
You too. Take care. Okay.
All right, next up is Phelps Hospital, Northwell Health. Okay, who's presenting?
Good evening, Madam Chairperson. My name is Matt Steinberg. I'm with Divney Tung Schwalbe. I'm a planner. We are here for the Phelps emergency generator. I have a brief presentation to introduce the board to this project, if I may.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm actually joined by a few others on the team. Michael Caparino, he's a senior project manager for Northwell Health. Anthony Bastardi and Michael Gillespie are with AKF. They're the project mechanical and electrical engineers. Brendan Kelly with McLaren Engineering is the project civil engineer. And then we have members of the Phelps Hospital administration listening in. Eileen Egan, the executive director, Tracy Fairtag, Jeffrey Mead, and Barry Zuckerman. Phelps has been before this board several times over the past few years as it works to improve the overall function and operations of the hospital. This includes the main drop-off area, the new MRI building, and the emergency department area improvements. This project represents another step for the hospital to ensure that it can meet the needs of the community, particularly with the number of times that the lower Hudson Valley has lost power due to ever-intensifying storms. Phelps participates in a mutual aid agreement consortium among other hospitals in the Hudson Valley, and it also coordinates with other hospitals in the Northwell Health System in Long Island and New York City, as well as Hudson Valley. So the purpose of this project is to improve the backup power for Phelps Hospital, which supports their life safety functions, their critical infrastructure, and their critical equipment. This project will also allow Phelps to upgrade its backup power switching system to meet contemporary guidelines and to remove some of the existing generators that are nearing the end of their usable lifespan. I'm just going to bring up some materials that we had submitted to the board. This is a location map. The location of the generator plant and the proposed fuel tanks will be located on the northwest side of the existing hospital building. The enclosure has been designed to house two 1.5 megawatt emergency generators and associated equipment. Zooming in a bit, the enclosure is approximately 86 feet by 61 feet with the catwalk. For comparison, the existing trailer, South Trailer building in that general location is about 47 feet by 47 feet. There'll be two fuel tanks just north of the generator enclosure that would each be 20,000 gallons for diesel fuel. As part of the project, it would also include new configuration of duct banks and equipment that would serve the generator and also connect it to the main portion of the hospital. There'd be some site disturbance, but it would be contained to under 1 acre. Landscaped areas and pavement that are disturbed would be restored. There'd be a reconfiguration of the existing parking in the area of the generator enclosure. Overall, there'd be a net reduction of approximately 7 spaces. The village engineer, Mr. Natarelli, had a question about drainage. The roof itself has a peak in the middle, so it will shed water evenly to both sides. Once the water discharges to the asphalt level, the site's then graded to a low point on the east side of the site where water would be collected in the existing drainage system. And if Mr. Natarelli needs additional information, then we can have McLaren reach out and provide him with any other details. There'd be 5 generators that would be removed as part of the project. As I mentioned, these are all, many of them are nearing the end of their usable lifespan. Their existing south trailer building would also be removed. The materials that are stored inside that trailer would be relocated to other interior spaces of the hospital. We also provided the board with a number of renderings of the proposed enclosure. Mr. Smith, your planning consultant, had a question about the compliance with the noise ordinance, chapter 272. The noise ordinance limits sound pressure to 70 decibels at 63 hertz. The proposed generators will operate at about 60 hertz. The nearest point to the north is 225 feet. This is the Rockefeller State Park Reserve, which includes Rockwood Hall. At that location, the noise level would be 63 decibels. And the residential uses to the south of the hospital campus are approximately 850 feet. And at that point, the noise levels would be 53 decibels. So both are well below the maximum limits of the noise ordinance. The generators would be tested on an as-needed basis with based on the manufacturer specifications, generally once a month, along with other times during the year. Mr. Smith asked about the fuel delivery. We don't have an exact frequency. It will depend, obviously, if they're being used for an emergency situation, depending on how long they're run. It may be more frequent, but generally the schedule would be infrequent, and that the hospital would contract with a delivery company that they could schedule it so that it doesn't conflict with the peak times of parking in that area. And we'd be happy to answer any other questions that you have.
How many hours will a 20,000 gallon fuel tank allow the hospital to run?
So the 1,500 kilowatt generator, I believe they run about, it's like 106 gallons an hour at full load. So that's, I believe it's like 180 hours. Obviously they wouldn't, it might need to be refueled if it had to run at that time, but I think it works out to about 7 days with that tank. Obviously, if the hospital knew it might have to operate it at that time, I'm sure they would probably, have to reach out to their contractor to, for fuel.
And your drawing indicates a second fuel tank at a later time, or are you provisioning both of them?
Right, so they don't propose to install both of them at the same time. So we understand that they would have to seek permits for the second one at the time of installation and comply with any regulations in effect at that time. But since they're thinking of it, we obviously wanted to show it on this plan.
Okay, any other questions?
Go ahead, Dave. I'll defer to you, James. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, was there any consideration given to just doing gutters and piping the stormwater to the system? I don't think there's any issue with the stormwater from the roof going into that existing system, but it seems like you have parking right next to the building. You may want to capture that and pipe it into the system so that it's not splashing on folks that are parking there. You want to look into it?
Yeah, thank you for that comment. We'll talk with the civil engineers to see if that's something that the company that does the enclosure they could probably take a look at that.
And just one other question, will the tanks need to be registered with the county's petroleum bulk storage program?
I'll have to defer to Phelps if they know that question.
Hi, it's Jeffrey Mead from Phelps Hospital. Yes, those tanks will be registered, as are all tanks on the hospital campus with the county and the bulk storage program.
Great, okay.
How long do you estimate a project like this would last?
I believe we had indicated it was a 6-month for this particular portion of it. Phelps is undergoing other improvements to their electrical systems, but this in particular is, I think, about a 6-month process.
Thank you.
So Matt, just a couple quick just questions. If you keep that screen up, so the existing generators that are out there now don't have any attenuation from noise. In other words, they're not.
Correct. They either have no attenuation or I believe just the stock sound attenuation, where this new enclosure is custom designed.
Right. So I mean, theoretically, you probably are improving a situation where you've got all of these different generators that don't have the attenuation, and now you have one facility where you're attenuating all of it in one location.
Correct. That is probably the likely scenario. And a couple of them are actually located on rooftops, where this new one will be, on that north side of the hospital. And the closest residences are about 850 to the south with the intervening hospital building. The residences that aren't, with the building between are over 1,000 feet away. So.
And the proposed fuel tank, are there regulations that go beyond just, let's say, Village of Sleepy Hollow building code with respect to the safety and security of that fuel tank? Maybe Mr. Mead knows, or some of your other professionals.
Yes, it's required by New York State Building Code, the Fire Code, and FPA.
Okay, so that you're right. Great.
Right. So we're showing, there will be protection around them. They'll obviously have to have all kind, whatever is required for spill containment, spill cleanup kits, all of that stuff.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? So this is a site plan amendment, and given that this is for the safety and betterment of the community at large, we were advised by council that we didn't necessarily need a public hearing. So given that, we did ask David Smith to provide a draft resolution.
But Madam Chair, you do have a draft resolution before you. One of the overriding issues, I think, is Mr. Steinberg had raised, and was included with part of the correspondence, is the importance of this facility as part of the Northern Metropolitan Hospital Mutual Aid Agreement. That's part of, it was enacted in response to some of these relatively recent high impact, national and regional crises, such as 9/11, Hurricane Sandy, and global pandemic. So I think the thought is that this is a critical piece of infrastructure within a critical piece of of community infrastructure. And so if you'd like, I could read the resolved portions of the resolution that's before you.
That would be great. Thank you.
So now therefore be it resolved that having reviewed the entire record as noted above in relation to the previously approved site plan approval, the planning board determines that the proposed action constitutes a minor amendment to the original site plan that is necessary to promote the health and safety of the region's residents and further the facility's mandate of providing mutual aid assistance in times of high impact national and regional crises. And based upon chapter 450-66H of the Village Code, duly waives the requirement for a site plan public hearing. Be it further resolved that the planning board, after review of the materials submitted, public comments, recommendations in the EAF, is determined that the proposed action is an unlisted action and makes a determination of non-significance of environmental impact. Be it further resolved that the application for site plan amendment relative to certain improvements to the Phelps Memorial Hospital Center campus, including installation of a custom sound attenuation enclosure to house 2 new 1.5 megawatt emergency generators, installation of new duct banks and conduits to the main hospital building, installation of an approximately 40-foot long, 12-foot wide, 200,000 gallon ultra low sulfur diesel storage tank, removal of 5 existing generators located throughout the hospital campus, removal of an existing accessory trailer that has been used for drills and storage materials, which will be relocated to the interior of the hospital facility as shown on the site plan, as dated last revised May 6th, 2021, is hereby granted, and the applicant may obtain the endorsed approval of the planning board chair on a copy of the resolution and upon the site plan drawings, which endorsement shall permit filing in the Sleepy Hollow Department of Architecture, Land Development, Buildings and Building Compliance, the building department, for purposes of obtaining a building permit in accordance with this resolution and all building code requirements, provided, however, that this approval shall expire 1 year after the date of its resolution, if the following modifications and conditions have not been completed to the satisfaction of the planning board and the village building department, and the applicant has not obtained the required building permit or permits for construction in accordance with the approved plans. 1, the applicant shall pay the Village of Sleepy Hollow all application and review fees as required by the village code prior to a building code being issued. 2, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, an as-built survey shall be provided to the village building department. Any material change to the site plan from that approved by the planning board will require the applicant to present the revised plan to the planning board for a site plan amendment. And 3, documentation sufficient in form and substance to the village engineer that all comments raised in their May 14th, 2021 memorandum have been addressed. That's the resolution that's currently before the planning board.
Okay, thank you. So I move to adopt the resolution as Mr. Smith has just read.
I'll second it.
Ed McCarthy seconds, and all in favor, Aaron?
Aye.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Aye.
Okay. The resolution has been adopted.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson and members of the board. We really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. You can pass along to Andy how quickly you got your application through the Sleepy Hollow Planning Board.
Yes.
Tell him we missed him.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be back.
I'm sure.
I don't know, Matt. You did a very good job. You put him to
I
shame.
appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Well, have a good evening, and
Thank you. You too.
thank you for making Phelps better.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay. All right. And the last agenda item is the Barron residence at 15 Pocoho Drive. Hopefully I pronounced their last name correctly. Is a amended site plan approval for a proposed pool. So who is presenting?
That's me. And just for the record, my name is not Patrick Shore. That's my colleague who had been handling some of the communications. My name is Craig Flaherty. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New York, and I am representing Roy and Joni Barron, who are in the final stages of building their home at 15 Pocoho Drive. If I may, I'd like to share my screen and just walk you through a couple of exhibits. Here we go. So the first one I am showing is really the orientation of the site, just to key you folks into where we are. North is pointing at an angle to the upper right. The river is in the top left of the plan that you're looking at. Railroad, of course, between the property and the river. The wetland in question is actually on the east side of the railroad tracks at the bottom of a hill behind the residence. We were here in spring of 2018 when all the construction that you see on this plan, minus the pool fence, was approved by resolution by the planning board on May 17th, 2018. The next plan I'm going to show you is the plan on file at the time of that approval. And I'm going to zoom in here to the left side of the screen. Okay. So what I'm going to point out with my little hand, actually, do I have? Nope. Is really the area of amendment is back here. You will see actually at the time, zooming in a little more, that we had, oh, that's Zoom's not working very well. Here we go. Still not working very well. Okay, there we go. We had at the time indicated a spa in the backyard next to a patio with a fire pit and some stone steps in a landscaped or stone, walk steps in a landscaped area. And that was the plan that was on file at the time of the approval. I'm going to then toggle into what the proposed plan is. So you can kind of see now at the bottom of the screen, the spa, which had been located here, is now located here in that same lawn area. The patio is the same shape. The fire pit changes size. So again, back to the approved plan, I'm toggled to the approved plan, indicating those elements, and now to, again, back to the plan that is currently proposed. So I guess at the time, the design of the spa wasn't understood or detailed such that was thought that it was an above grade hot tub. It is in fact kind of an in-ground hot tub, but this is 8x8. So although we're here with an application for a pool, it is effectively an 8x8 in-ground hot tub, and something that we had disclosed from the beginning of the project. Since it is at ground, the building officials have noted the requirement for a pool fence to be surrounding this hot tub. And so that's the other item that we're now indicating on the plan. You see it in this fence symbol on the side property boundaries and cutting through the rear yard. And the position of the fence simply chosen to be unobtrusive and through the existing vegetation in the rear yard, so that it really kind of disappears into the landscape. That is really it. The new hot tub will be 85 feet from the closest wetland edge. The owners, of course, are like everybody else, looking forward to completing this project. Your assistance in that regard is much appreciated. They see it as a very minor modification to an already approved plan. I tend to agree with them based on what I've shown you. And they would, now that we're coming to the close here, this was kind of a surprise application for them that they needed to file it. And any time it takes to get this approved will unfortunately lead to the critical path of finishing this job. But I'm happy to answer any of your questions. And perhaps you can let me know what the process would be from here forward.
Yeah, Mr. Flaherty, as you pointed out, the resolution was passed 3 years ago, and you're suggesting that the planning board is in the critical path of the completion, but it seems that, quite 3 years has passed. Can you just give a general update on what's been taking so long and when you anticipate the all the construction to be complete?
Yeah, for a project like this, normally it would take a little bit longer than conventional construction, given the architecture and the attention to detail, and that was certainly true. And it did not help at all that the pandemic came along during the process. That led to supply chain disruption, getting deliveries. It led to the number of workers you could have on site being reduced. Unfortunately, one of the contractors passed from the disease and had to be replaced. It's taken longer than anyone wants, I would say, the owners in particular. But after talking to the contractor, he tells me that everything will be done by the fall.
Can you give a kind of broad brush overview of what remains to be done between now and the fall?
I don't know if I know the specifics of exactly which work needs to occur. I think I may have seen my clients on the call. Perhaps they could weigh in, or actually I see Sal on the call. Perhaps he could weigh in on exactly what work remains to be done. Not getting any takers.
Hello.
There we
Can
go.
someone hear me?
Yes, Sal, we can hear you.
Let me see if I could. Give me 1 second here. I can't put my screen up.
Well, you could just.
But anyway, I'll speak anyway, regardless. To answer your question, the stage that that we're in now currently is we're ready for drywall. So we're ready to get into the finishes and finalize at this point.
So I haven't walked by the property in a few weeks. So is the exterior all complete?
The exterior is largely complete. The CMU work is largely complete, and the siding is largely complete. There are sporadic punch list items throughout the exterior, but it's largely finished.
What does CMU stand for?
The block work, the masonry work on the structure.
Okay. And when you say largely, is that 99% or 80% or 60%?
I would say that it is 95%, probably closer to 90, yeah, over 95%. All of the facade portions of the home, soffits, fascias, the overhangs are all covered with their final finish.
And how about the landscaping?
The landscaping there is no landscaping has been completed yet. And getting the spa and completing the backyard is one of the critical path items for completing the landscaping. We would love to see to be able to do some portion of the landscaping, but the majority of the landscaping is largely driven by the pathway to the rear. which is on the south side of the property. That's the only way to get back there at this point.
How about the street facing landscaping?
All of the driveway work and the landscaping that will invariably be the critical pathway from the exterior is hinging on that. So there is no landscaping to the front that is completed. No, and there's a large motor court area in the front of the house, and the pathway to the rear is to the left of the house going down to the side, and that is the portion of landscaping that cannot be done at this point.
And any other questions? It's been such a long time. I don't recall what the landscape architecture and the planting plans are.
I can show you the approved plan if you'd like to look at it again. Would you like to see that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Are you seeing the landscape plan now?
Yes. Would you mind talking through it a little bit? It's difficult to read on the screen.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the front is largely. This is the. Well, let me get my little hand here. It's a little easier. So here's the front drive court and the front driveway in its final form. The front is largely lawn with a few specific trees. Then there's screening on the northern property boundary, screening along the southerly property boundary, and then intermittent shrub and ground stabilization along the edges of the lawn area where there's a slope back down to existing grade. And then some other trees in the backyard as well.
And is this the extent of your wetlands buffer mitigation plans?
This is the plan that was approved in May of 2018. As my record indicates, I could look at my files a little more deeply if I need to find
You may
those.
want to look because the planting plan that I have as part of the resolution was dated May 15th, 2018. What was the date of that plan?
That one was a little earlier, yeah. Okay, hold on, let me see if I can find that. Resubmission. Here we go. I've got a May 15th plan now. You're right. It's much more planting. Let's see if I share the right one. Here we go. Yeah, there's far more planting indicated on this plan up on both property boundaries and along the edge of the disturbed area in the back.
So Craig, I don't know if you were here for one of the prior applications, 650 Riverside, where the applicant's proposing a similar thing. They're proposing a structure within the wetland buffer. And so I think one of the comments I had raised was if you could clarify the extent of the additional disturbance within the wetland buffer and how would you propose to mitigate that at the same 2-to-1 as part of a revised planting plan?
Well, I guess the reality is we're staying within the original footprint of disturbance, right? Right here was new lawn. No, we're
You're
not.
adding a structure. You're adding a structure.
Oh, the structure shifts the 15 feet in that direction, even though that area was already disturbed. So we're not proposing any additional land area disturbance or any additional tree removal.
But you're adding a structure into the wetland buffer. It's not just disturbance, it's a structure. There's a distinction there.
Okay. And so your specific request is, should there be And does it make sense for there to be more mitigation planting? Is that what you're suggesting?
Correct.
In terms of, okay.
That's the question. Yes.
I certainly can ask my clients about that and see if it makes sense within the context of the approved landscape plan.
Yeah, I think the specific ratio is a 2-to-1 mitigation versus the structure or disturbance to the wetlands buffer. So I'll let you do that calculation and come back to the building department before you come back to the planning board. Are the plantings, the trees and the shrubs and grasses, are they all native species?
Well, the list is here in the right. I wouldn't be able to comment to that specifically as the civil engineer, but looking at some of these types, yes, I think they're all likely. But I can answer that question too.
Well, I'm an electrical engineer, but it does look like a lot of these are natives.
Yeah. I recognize a lot of the names.
Is that correct, Erin?
Yeah, a lot of them are. I would have to take, there's a couple I'm unfamiliar with, so I'd have to look at those. It's worth mentioning that there is, since your landscape plan came through the planning board, there is, there's a movement towards pollinator pathways within the region. That's something that is gaining traction and creating greater corridors for insect species that are native to the area, non-nuisance insects, I should say. So it is something that perhaps the landscape architect could just, or the landscape planner could just take a look at, perhaps look at some of these lists if you are adding additional plantings, to have them be perhaps part of the lists that are beneficial to the area. There's a lot of information available. There's the pollinator pathway. If you go online, you'll find lots of information locally.
Westchester County also has a list of all the native species.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find them, and I'm sure our landscape designer can access those. Yep.
All right.
So could you maybe, just so I have a very clear understanding, and my clients have a very clear understanding, exactly how will the process work between here and a potential decision by the planning board?
So once you verify the ratios as far as the wetland buffer impact and your mitigation plan, I encourage you to have a dialogue with the building department, who will guide you. And then when you're ready, you'll have to notice the neighborhood to have a public hearing for the site plan amendment. And then we'll schedule the public hearing and go from there.
When you say ready, does the ready happen at a subsequent meeting or before a subsequent meeting?
There's a date before the June 17th meeting that you'd have to have all your documentation, but I guess we also have to move to open a public hearing, right, Sean?
Well, you have to schedule the public hearing. If you're inclined to do that, you can do that tonight for the June meeting, and then we can prepare a notice right away.
Yep. So Mr. Flaherty, do you think
Well,
you're going to be
Yeah.
ready?
What was the date again?
June 17th. So you would need your submissions to the building department by what date, Sean?
June 3rd.
Okay, so if we are able to get the 2-on-1 calculation along with any proposed modifications to the landscape plan to the building department before June 3rd, we could move to a public hearing on the 17th.
That's correct.
Well, I'd love to have the opportunity to make that happen if we can.
If the board schedules the public hearing, we'll proceed with scheduling that public hearing and having it noticed prior to the June 3rd.
Yeah.
But the documents will have to be submitted by then for review.
Yeah, and I guess worst case scenario, if somehow the documents were not found to be on time or complete, you could continue the hearing.
I think you can get it done.
Yeah, I think we can get it done too.
I hope so. Okay.
The
So-
owner had put a comment into the chat. I don't know if it's worth reading that.
Yeah, that's my client. I just wanted to make sure that it is clear, which I believe it is, that it's clear that there's no change in the number of approved plants that are, or trees that are either being removed or going in. The only thing that's changing is really the spot location and the location of the pool fence. But I think Mr. Smith, if I were to understand your explanation, it was that since the structure is now within the 100-foot setback instead of outside of the 100-foot setback, the area of that structure times 2 is what you're looking for in terms of an additional augmenting of the existing buffer to the wetland.
May I just ask, would it be more helpful if there were no structure within that buffer area and we mitigate the safety provisions by
the structure,
placing the fence within
Sal, the structure that they're talking about is the hot tub. So the hot tub on the plan from 2018 was just outside the 100-foot buffer. The hot tub today is now just within that 100-foot buffer, and what they're suggesting is their standard protocol is to require some compensatory mitigation for activities like that.
Yeah. All right, thank you for clarifying that.
Did the plan always include a fence?
No, we didn't think initially we needed a fence for a hot tub with a hard cover, but the building department is suggested that we do require it in this situation because it's kind of an at-grade entry into this body of water, albeit a very small one.
It's not the building department's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's the state code.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So would the fence be considered a structure or not, Sean, Dave?
Yes, fences are considered structures.
So it's not just the spa itself,
Okay.
but the fencing as well. Any other questions? So we make sure you're ready for June 17th?
Can you hear me? This is Roy Barron.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. I got unmuted. I'm not sure how far the hot tub now encroaches when it didn't encroach before, because I don't know that we really moved it that much. And would it make a difference if suppose it's like a foot over that 100-foot line? If we moved it 100 feet back, 1 foot back, would that make any difference at all in what you're asking for in terms of compensation? Because I mean, all we're doing is just sliding it slightly on a cement patio that was already approved to be there. So I just want to kind of understand what we're supposed to do to make everything right here.
I just want to point out that it's not compensation, but it's actually mitigation. What we're trying to do is mitigate the impact on the wetland buffer. You know, nobody's being compensated.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
just so
my
you
point
know,
is it's
Roy,
sliding on the patio the patio is already there, and it's the location of the hot tub on the patio. And I'm just want to understand in my head how that infringes any further on the wetlands.
are you able to see the screen, Roy?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So this is this line right here, which is a dash dot dot dash dot dot line here, is the 100-foot wetland setback. So the spa was located here on the prior plans, and
Okay.
and is now located here. So it was mostly outside before, and now it is inside. So it's that kind of 15-foot shift within the kind of the lawn terrace next to the patio.
Oh, okay.
That's creating that change. So if we wanted to kind of, I guess, not provide additional mitigation, we could choose a location back behind that line again.
No, we'll do whatever
What is the
mitigation
impact that
board
we're
requires.
referring to? The
Yeah,
impact,
whatever they
because we
need.
have a retaining wall that's there now currently. What kind of impact is the, I think that we've all assumed that since we were already encroaching into the area with that steel retaining wall and that was being built up, that was within the limits of disturbance, and that moving the spa over slightly was not any more impact than we currently have already made. So I'm not sure why the spa movement would change anything, because we've already encroached on that area to begin with the steel wall that's there. We've already built up that grade. It's already been backfilled. So the grades have changed as a result of all of the work that's already underway.
Stop. This is like a death of a thousand cuts, right? It's like, all right, well, we approved something and now we're coming back. And so now we have to look at something else again, right? Why didn't you approve this? Why didn't you propose this the first time? Right? But you didn't. So now you're coming back and you're asking for more impacts into the wetland buffer. Listen, the code is the code. The planning board needs to apply and respond to the code. So you changed your plan and you put a structure into the wetland buffer. That's a different impact than what was originally proposed.
I mean, I think the difference is before you had a lawn that was permeable and now you have a spa that's not permeable.
We will take care of whatever mitigation that the planning board requires. That's you can be assured that we will do that. That's not a problem. I think in terms of the impermeable area, actually the new plan has less impermeable impermeable surface area than the old plan.
You're
Just for
right.
what-
That is true, and I did see that in the notes. I think I'm just looking at it from where that line that was just pointed out about the 100-foot wetland setback, and speaking specifically about the difference of that spa shifting. But I mean, I think in the big scope of things, the additional mitigation we're talking about is not actually that large. I mean, the area we're talking about, it's minor on the big scheme of things.
Well, we're happy to take care of that, and we appreciate the board's patience in dealing with this project, and we hope to have it finished and it will be out of your hair.
Yeah, we just need your engineers to do the math essentially between moving the spa and the fencing structure and what the wetlands buffer impact is, and then come back to us on June 17th and we'll move this along.
Very much for your time.
Madam Chair, you need a motion for June 17th, public hearing.
I was just going to say, can I move that we have a public hearing on June 17th for this amendment?
I second this. All approve. Aaron? Lindsay?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Okay, we've all approved, so we'll see you on June 17th. Okay, have a good night. Last is the approval of minutes of our last planning board meeting, which was April 22nd, 2021. Did anyone have any changes or edits?
Just one small typo that I informed Pam about.
I had 2 edits as well.
I had a small typo also.
Okay.
Sean.
I haven't seen amended minutes after my email to Pam, so
Yeah,
I don't know what everybody else's edits were either.
Yeah, I asked her to get all the edits together and then put out one final draft. If you don't mind, I'll have her do that this week.
Okay, we can put off the approval of the minutes until our June 17th meeting then.
Sure.
Okay, any other business? Okay, I move to close the meeting.
Second.
Lindsay seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Ed, Lindsay, and Kirsten all said aye. So have a good night.
You
And
too.
we'll see you in person in June. And on Saturday for some of you. Okay, bye.